You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the original series episode, Operation Annihilate. Yeah. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Father Jason Tyler. Hey, Father.
Hello.
And Jimmy Aiken. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
Folks, before we get started, I want to remind you to like the Secrets of Star Trek wherever you find us on Facebook. We're at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Retweet us on X, where we're at SQPN, and leave us comments on social media wherever you find us. We love to hear from you. So, Jimmy, can you give us a recap of what happens in Operation Annihilate?
This week, we get the sad ending of Kirk's brother Sam, who we've gotten to know better on Strange New Worlds. Sam, with his wife and son, are living on a planet that's been infected with flying parasites that look like big, horrifying fried eggs. The fried eggs infect people and then use pain to force them to build spaceships to spread the infection to other planets. Sam Kirk is already dead, and his wife dies soon, too. But Kirk's nephew is still alive, still infected, and thus still in danger. But he's unconscious for the moment. Mr. Spock gets infected too, and it takes him a while to master the pain he's in, but eventually he does. He goes back down to the planet to capture one of the fried eggs, which are apparently part of a hive mind. Rather than open up a dialogue with the fried egg creature, Kirk decides to just kill it. They realize that really bright light will kill it, and Mr. Spock is freed from the infection by exposing him to super bright light, but he's also blinded because McCoy committed a horrible breach of laboratory procedures and medical ethics by not waiting until they had test results back first, and it turns out that just UV light will kill the fried eggs. They then set up a network of UV satellites around the planet to free all the inhabitants from the infection, and afterwards Mr. Spock gets his sight back because Vulcans have a convenient inner eyelid that caused the blindness to be only temporary. Something else Dr. McCoy didn't consider in treating his patient. The end.
Yeah, this part of Star Trek history, they just didn't. You know, the doctors knew a lot about the humans, but not a whole lot about everybody else.
Right. Yeah.
Father, what'd you think of this one?
You know, I thought it was a story that had some potential that just wasn't realized in some ways. You know, I think the idea of thinking through some kind of parasite that's driving people insane and the need to contain that and what measures you might take, I think there's some interesting things that could have been developed. But, you know, we don't see that. We get a little bit of Kirk's family, but I'm left wondering why, in a sense. I mean, the brother dies right away. We don't really see any mourning from Kirk. We don't see a scene of him having to say, okay, I've got an emergency to face. I'll deal with that, and then kind of, mourn my brother afterwards. And then we have no idea what happens to the nephew at the end. I don't think there's any mention there of, who's going to take care of the boy, anything of that sort.
There is a deleted scene about that.
Is there?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that explains a little bit of that one then. But yeah, and I also noticed what you described, Jimmy, as Dr. McCoy's lab problems or whatever of not really, waiting to see what's the data from the first experiment before we move on to the next one. So, not the kind of episode I'm likely to rewatch many times. Not the absolute worst, but it's not so great.
How about you, Jimmy?
I've never liked this episode. It's got body horror in it, but this is body horror I really hate. The fried eggs, they're kind of disgusting looking on their own, and they make this horrible squeaking, sucky noise. It's even in the closed caption, and they'll say squeaking and sucking noise and stuff like that. And, but it's just, this is just very unpleasant. Interestingly, so this is the third episode in the first season where behavior control is the major issue, because that's in Return of the Archons, where you have the members of the body. That's in This Side of Paradise, where you have, which is even more like this episode, because it's about spores that want to travel from planet to planet and stuff like that. And then you have Operation Annihilate, and all three of them involve behavior modification, where you've got something that's causing people to behave differently than they ordinarily would. But the difference is, in the first two, the members of the body are happy. And the people in this side of paradise with the spores, they're happy. And then in this one, they're tortured with horrible pain. And it's like, man, I mean, if someone's going to usurp your free will and hijack your behavior, at least they could make you happy while they're doing it. This let's torture people into building spaceships for it. I mean, that's just horrifying. Yeah. And so this episode just gives me the yuck, horrible vibes. In terms of the episode itself, I don't think it's that bad, not for the period television, but Dr. McCoy and Spock. Now, see, Spock does, I guess, three quick thoughts. So Kirk is the one who comes up with the solution in this. It's him who he's hammering Spock and McCoy for, I'm putting you on the hot seat with me. I've either got to kill 1 million people or I've got to, or we're just going to let these fried eggs win, and we're not going to do either one of those. So I need a third alternative. And even though Spock or McCoy would be the more logical candidates to notice, hey, we had that guy fly into the sun at the beginning of the episode and he got free. So there's something about sunlight that kills these creatures. Let's figure that out. You'd expect Spock to figure that out or McCoy to figure that out. But no, it's Kirk. And this is late enough in the first season that I can't help thinking this may have been Bill Shatner saying, I'm the hero. I need to be the one to figure out the solution, right? Even though it's not logical for him to do it. So what that does is it then, in order to jack the drama, which is the whole reason Kirk's family is in this, is to make it more dramatic. Even though they have nothing to do with the plot, they're just MacGuffins, the Spock and McCoy end up coming across as horribly incompetent in this, where Spock gets blinded and then it turns out that's unnecessary. And then he's got this inner eyelid and everything. And okay, they both look bad, but I can at least give Spock an excuse in that he's got a horrible pain creature inside him torturing him. Right. So I can excuse Spock coming off bad in this episode, but McCoy is just inexcusable. When Kirk realizes that Spock has been unnecessarily blinded, he gets really mad at McCoy. And he's within an inch of just giving him a total tongue lashing, and he holds it back. But I have in my notes, Kirk gets really mad at McCoy, and then I have in parentheses, should be, exclamation point. And then a couple of scenes later, McCoy's feeling bad about how Spock's blinded, and Kirk is telling him, Bones, it wasn't your fault. And I'm in my notes, in parentheses, yes, it was. And so this is a horrible breach of laboratory protocol and medical ethics. You would never treat a patient like this.
Right.
By the way, I wonder if you would include Dagger of the Mind as another mind control episode in this season.
It could be. I'd have to think about that one. Dagger of the Mind isn't one I've seen too many times, but I acknowledge there could be more than the three I was thinking of, but those are the three that stood out for me.
Yeah, that was the one in the the prison where they...
Yeah, and that was kind of torture, but kind of not torture at the same time.
Yeah. So for my part, I'm with you guys. I remember this as a kid and the creepy flying things, although... My favorite memory of this one is from the blooper reel, where when the flying egg creature, when they have it go at at Spock in that scene, the first time they did it, they flew it low and it whacks him in the butt, and then everybody cracks up laughing. So that's my main memory of this one. This is the last episode of season 1, so this was the.
Which means if they hadn't had, if Bijo Trimble hadn't led that letter writing campaign to get the second season, this would have been the final episode of the series, which, well, okay, I don't know which was worse, the actual final episode of the series or this one.
I know, right. It kind of reminds me, you said, that it had the potential. This is kind of like the Firefly movie Serenity, a similar premise of, although it wasn't alien creatures, it was human experimentation, but where a whole planet of people went crazy, and they end up becoming, in that, the Reavers. And it was an interesting, different take on it, a lot more gritty and violent than you would have got from a 1960s TV show.
At least this one didn't kill my favorite characters.
Although the quote
Shepherd Book he had so much potential.
Yes, he did. But Mal's quote about Shepherd Book mounting him on the front cracked me up the first time I heard it. So if you haven't seen the movie, folks, well, spoilers for a 20-year-old movie, but go see it anyway. What's with the name? Operation Annihilate. It makes no sense.
It doesn't make much sense. I think the operation is we're going to annihilate these creatures. I think that's what they're doing. One of the temp titles before the final title made that a little clearer.
Yeah, it was Operation Destroy originally in the first draft. So we do get this introduction of Kirk. Kirk has a family. He has a brother, Sam or George, which he goes by alternately. His dad was George. His brother's name is George. But like a lot of times when you have a junior and a senior, the junior uses his middle name. But I like the fact that they use Shatner as the body double, but they throw a mustache on him and change his hairstyle, which is funny because I think that's why the Sam Kirk of Strange New Worlds has that mustache, that really obvious mustache that we get. But like you mentioned, like Kirk stays pretty stoic throughout. I mean, even like finding his brother dead on the floor, he's still on mission, doesn't really, freak out too much.
Yeah, by the way, speaking of his brother, it's not clear to me why his brother is dead, because these parasites aren't trying to kill you. That would just be killing the labor they want to use to build starships. So I don't know why Sam Kirk is dead here. It could be, he got infected and killed himself.
There's that, right. Or someone else killed him, because they were trying to keep them, like his, Kirk's sister-in-law, whatever, I forget her name, was trying to, she was trying to keep them out of the air. They were trying to get into the air ducts. I mean, that was
which doesn't make much sense, because she and Sam and Peter have already been infected. So why is keeping them out of the air ducts a thing?
Yeah, that was I think we had a logical inconsistency there, at least.
What it could be is they were all trying to kill themselves and they were trying to get in to stop them or something, but they didn't make that clear.
And the way these creatures work is they apparently travel from system to system, but not through space. Like they need ships to carry them. So presumably a ship from the last crazy planet that they infested arrived here at Deneva and started infecting people. So did Starfleet not know about the other planets going crazy?
Well, no, they knew about them. They just, it sort of, the pattern had, here's my take. The pattern had been spread out over, like it took 50 years or something between infections of different planets. So they only had 3 or 4 examples before we get to this one. So they may not have seen the pattern. And then they established that this colony world, Deneva, they say it's a beautiful world. It's a hub for freighters or something, but then they say it's been a year since they've had Starfleet contact, which makes no sense.
This is a well-developed industrial world.
It's filmed at a well-developed industrial park. TRW Industrial Space and Defense Park. Yeah, in California. A defense contractor.
But yeah, I mean, I gotta say, I like the on-location shooting for this one. It's better than the matte paintings that they've done. The matte paintings have been fine, but it's nicer to be in a place. But yes, it didn't make a lot of sense to have this big established colony with 1 million people that hasn't had contact in a year. That doesn't make sense. So that was kind of odd.
Interestingly, the original draft of this, now in the filmed version, they find out they can kill the fried eggs with UV light, and so they put up ultraviolet satellites to kill them all. But in the original draft of the script, Kirk has this dilemma of, do we let the fried eggs win, or do I kill 1 million people? In the original draft, Kirk kills 1 million people. Yeah, he wipes out all the life on Deneva. And then for the second draft, they backed off from that and said, okay, we're going to have a critical failure point plot, where you destroy the king vampire and all the other vampires die. So they traced the fried eggs back to their home planet and annihilated that. Mm-hmm. And that let all the Denovans live.
Right.
And then they simplified it further to, ultraviolet light will kill them. We'll put up some satellites.
Like, even that doesn't really make sense, because if you could just shine ultraviolet light from space, mm-hmm. then the sunlight would have already killed it.
Well, they kind of cover that. They say that these things, even though they can apparently survive in sunlight for a time, they prefer to stay in darkened interior enclosures. Mm. And so I would understand that to mean that they have some tolerance for UV light. So what they're going to do, because it caused that guy in the shuttle to get really close to the sun, where the amount mm-hmm. of UV light would be much higher, that they're going to really bombard the surface of the planet with UV in a way that goes beyond what the sunlight would natively have at this distance from the star.
I just hope there weren't any in basements or locked rooms without windows, locked doors.
Well, they covered that too. They said, at least in dialogue, they said what we're going to do is so powerful that even if someone's inside, it'll still get to them.
Yeah, not sure how that works, but
yeah, I'm not either.
So, speaking of Kirk's reaction to his family dying, he doesn't sugarcoat Sam's death to his wife O'Reilly in the sickbay.
I made that same note.
Yeah, he just lays it out. Oh, Sam's dead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no, I'm sorry to tell you, or unfortunately, something happened. No, it's just he's dead.
Yeah. And that could be in part, that could be for drama. It also could be because Gene Roddenberry had this idea that in the Star Trek's time, now established as the 23rd century, that people weren't going to look at death the way they do now. And that really came out in the Next Gen. Where like you have that early episode where a boy's mom dies and then an alien starts impersonating the boy's mom, and everyone on the Enterprise is like, why aren't you dealing with your mom's death the way we think you should?
Yeah, right. Because he's a boy. I remember us talking about that. I mean, Kirk does say, look, Sam's dead, but your son's alive. So you've got to, be strong for him. I think is kind of where we're trying to go with that, but the writers probably didn't listen to DC Fontana and didn't, go into that as much. So, yeah.
They did have a scene, which they actually filmed, where at the end of the episode, Peter, Kirk's nephew, has been freed from the infection, and he's actually wearing a command uniform shirt in this scene.
Yeah.
And Kirk's talking to him on the bridge about he's going to go back to Deneva and live there. And the write-up on Memory Alpha says he's going to live with his father's partner. And they're not clear about, well, wait, O'Reilly died. And she was his wife, so I guess maybe they mean his business partner or something.
Right.
Because I don't think they'd be introducing a mistress at this stage.
Right. Yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah. In 1966, they wouldn't be referring to a female companion as partner anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's a Memory Alpha 21st century thing or what, but yeah, it seemed weird.
Yeah. But that scene ended up getting cut.
Yeah. So the amoeba, or whatever you want to call it, which is really a brain cell, right? That's what they identify it as, kind of a kind of brain cell.
The fried egg, yeah.
Yeah. It's intelligent, doesn't register on sensors, and can stand up to heavy phaser fire. I mean, that's really...
Yeah, they speculate it comes from a place where the physical laws of the universe as we understand them don't apply. And that's why it's so resistant to phaser fire. And that immediately hooks it in to the larger mythology with the episode Where No One Has Gone Before from Next Gen, where we meet the Traveler and they go to all those weird spaces. And so presumably the fried eggs are from someplace like that.
Right.
But what struck me is, okay, they've established it's a hive mind and it's intelligent because it's compelling people to build starships for it. And so you've got an intelligent creature that you've just made first contact with. What's the first thing you do? I mean, I know, kill it, but if this were Discovery, it would be like, we should open up a dialogue with this creature and establish peaceful relations. And they give zero thought to doing that.
Yeah, Spock would be laying in sickbay, tortured by this thing internally, and then there would be Michael, which is next to him, like earnestly talking with him, trying to talk through him to the creature.
Yeah.
You can just picture it now.
I would, given the fact what they do establish and the Federation ethics they've established, because this isn't the mirror universe Terran Empire where kill it would be their first option. I would have thrown in a few lines just to address this possibility and say, Jim, have McCoy, for example, say, Jim, it's building starships. It's clearly intelligent. Should we try to talk to this thing? And then Kirk could say, no, it knows we're intelligent because it's controlling people against their will and torturing them. This is not, it knows that we are intelligent and we can build starships. It is not interested in talking to us. It is interested in torturing us to get what it wants. Let's kill this thing.
Right. That would have been an interesting, like I could see them doing that in a modern version of Star Trek, whether it's the Kelvin or the Strange New Worlds era. This idea of acknowledging it's intelligent, but it's not seeking peace, and it's not looking for dialogue, and it's not. And so we need to engage in self-defense here over peaceful, engagement.
Even Next Generation would have had a little bit of that dialogue. You would, of course, had Worf suggesting we should, attack this thing. And everyone would go, no, we're not going to do that.
It would have been interesting if you'd set this in TNG. You would have had Worf be the one infected by it, and his "I can handle the pain" Klingon warrior thing, because pain sticks and all that. That would have been interesting because then they would have had to stop Worf from trying to take over the ship, like Spock tries to do in this one, before he gains control using his Vulcan discipline and all that.
Yeah, that was interesting in this because he says, pain is a thing of the mind, and I guess I have mind superpowers if I'm a Vulcan, so I can control this. But, okay, well, actually, pain is a stimulation of the nervous system and its nociceptors, and you're drawing a really sharp distinction between the mind or consciousness and the physical pain response. And it's like, this is getting into really dualistic territory. If you're saying your nervous system can be having massive pain response, and yet you're able to block it out of your consciousness. I mean, okay, this is getting towards Cartesian dualism here.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I mean, with the creatures on the inside of the body, it can manipulate those nerve endings to whatever degree it takes to get a Vulcan to respond. I find it hard to believe that your mental disciplines are that high, but that's what we need for this to work. And that means that Spock's the only man for the job to collect a sample from the planet, because he can't be reinfected, which is, and so,
there is a nice moment after he's tried to take over the ship, and he was talking about how I needed to bring it down, which is interesting because the Enterprise is not designed to land. But I could headcanon that as like who's going to bring down the saucer section or something. But
right.
But then so they subdue him. It's interesting when Nurse Chapel comes up to the bridge and she's got the hypo to trank Spock. And then she gives it to McCoy and lets McCoy administer the hypo instead of just running up to Spock and injecting him, which is what I think a real nurse would do.
Yeah.
But then they've got Spock. He comes to in sickbay, and they've got him restrained in bed. So they've got his arms and stuff, with these black restraint bands on him. And he's talking to Kirk about, okay, Captain, I've mastered my pain. And it's clear he's still uncomfortable because he's still wincing and grunting occasionally. But he says, I've mastered my pain. I can return to duty. And McCoy is like, I don't think so. But
Yeah.
Kirk said, and it's weird. It's a clunky line. He just says, "Spock, I need you," which for what? You haven't established that. But he says, and this is sensible. It's like, okay, well, we'll see how it goes. If you can continue to master your pain, we'll see. But I want more track record of you really are in control of this, given you just tried to take over the ship.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so I thought that was an okay way of handling the situation. And then Spock and Kirk and McCoy leave, and Spock's laying there in bed. And there's this nice moment with no dialogue where it's clear that Spock really is back in control of himself, because he's laying there and with one arm, he just rips off the band. He just moves his arm and rips the band in two, and then he moves his other arm and rips the other band in two. So he's free now. And he does not immediately run back to the bridge to try to take over the ship. And I thought that was an effective dialogue-free way of emphasizing, yeah, he really has mastered his pain. Now, he does then go to the transporter room to beam down. Yeah. And at first, we're not sure why he's doing that. But it turns out he wants to go back down so he can collect a specimen for study. Why they didn't collect it right after it injected him, I don't know, because that's what I would have done. If
I would get out of there.
Well, I mean, if you have a snake that's just bitten someone, you want to get the snake and bring it if you can.
I suppose. Yeah.
But or rabid animal bites someone, you want the animal so you can figure out what it had that we need to treat the person for.
Yeah.
But in Spock's and he ends up attacking Scotty and a transporter guy,
Leslie. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was or not, but he ends up attacking them. But his reasoning is bad, and so I think even though he is in control of his pain, he's still not thinking on full cylinders.
I feel like they wanted that to be ambiguous, that when he breaking out of sickbay, is he in control or not? Maybe he's really not. And then, and then he explains, no, I'm just trying to go to the surface. I know you wouldn't have let me go. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to do this on my own, which again his logic is flawed here. He's not, completely in control of his faculties, but Kirk lets him go.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of cylinders, I like how when the infected people attack them on the planet at the beginning of the episodes, they've got those plexiglass or acrylic batons that they're using, these transparent glass-looking plastic batons to attack them with.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there was a funny thing that Kirk said at that point. They tried to brain us with those clubs. Mm-hmm. I've never heard that expression, tried to brain us. Are they trying?
Oh, really?
Was that a 60s thing or something? Or was
braining someone, meaning hitting someone on the head,
right,
is an older expression. Yeah. It was more common when I was growing up.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard it probably in books, but yeah. So eventually when they feel like they can't figure out a way to kill it yet, they've all the things they've tried. And so Spock decides, look, before it gets any worse, you need to beam me and Peter down to the planet so that we can, die there instead of here or whatever. But that's when Kirk, I'm not ready to give up yet. And kind of when he gets the idea that maybe it was something to do with the sun that killed it, because the guy, said he was free before his ship burned up. So, and then they figure out it's the light, and then
it's the UV light.
The UV light. Kirk as a Spock, McCoy didn't stop to think, do we need all light? Does it have to be visible light?
How much light do we need? Maybe we don't need as much. I mean, they just simulated the sun, and that's reasonable. Mm-hmm. What you do when you're doing an experiment is you test the original, as close to the original conditions as you can make it, to figure out, does it even work? And then you start applying controls and you layer on more and more controls to figure out, okay, so how much light do we need? What does candle power need to be? Do we need all the frequencies or just some of them? Is there a way we can protect against this level of light in these frequencies and so forth? And McCoy just blows through it, does none of that. And Nurse Chapel, meanwhile, is running the tests. It's like, go Nurse Chapel.
Yeah.
Right. Well, if they had made there some sense of urgency, I could see him kind of like just throw everything at it right now. But there was no urgency. Like Spock wasn't about to die. Peter wasn't about to die. The Denovans weren't about to launch the spaceships. There was none of that. So there was no reason to just rush forward without walking through the steps of the test, except for dramatic purposes that we needed Spock to be blinded at this point.
The other thing that was kind of funny in that whole exchange was that before they try it out on Spock, Kirk and McCoy seemed to agonize over that idea, almost surprised that would be necessary. But that, exactly that's what you've got to do. You test it on the fried egg by itself. Okay, that worked. Now we have to test it on someone who's infected by the fried egg. Now, obviously, yes, you wait till you get all your information back, you apply, lower levels, that sort of thing should have happened. But, there's no way that they could have gone straight from trying it on the fried egg to trying it on the whole planet.
Yeah.
Without trying it on Spock in the meantime.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, another, and this one, I guess I can still headcanon it because Spock isn't firing on all cylinders, but when you go to collect one of these things, you don't want one fried egg. You want a bunch of fried eggs because you're going to want to run a bunch of tests.
Yeah, exactly. Why wouldn't they give him goggles to cover his eyes? Does he need to see it? I mean, maybe he does need to see it, but you start with the goggles first.
Yeah.
Anyway, so and then we have this dramatic scenes of Spock, blind Spock wandering around and bumping into things and whatnot. But then
I do like his attitude. He comes out and, he announces he's free, and then he walks into a table and says, I'm also quite blind. An equitable trade doctor. Thank you. And it's like, yeah, I like that attitude.
Yeah.
It also is a good sign for McCoy that he's not going to sue.
Right. So, they flood the planet. They kill all the fried eggs. I am not having fried eggs for breakfast for a while. But then we get this at the end. Spock walks onto the bridge like nothing happened. And we have this whole oh, didn't I tell you I have the nictitating membranes over my eyes, and and the blindness was only temporary. I'm not sure how that works. Why that?
Well, so the idea he got it. So they say it's an inner eyelid. So I don't guess it's quite a nictitated membrane,
Maybe.
But he said we scarcely think of it because it's so reflexive, and he cites it because he says his Vulcan sun is brighter, so we evolved these inner eyelids. So I guess the idea is they were ramping up the light to simulate being close to the sun, just reflexively, his inner eyelids closed, and that blocked enough of the light or shortened the exposure to the light enough that it only caused temporary blindness, because that is a thing. A flashbang goes off in your eyes, you're going to be temporarily blinded while your eyes recover from the exposure to that light.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, we do get this funny. We have to have the flutes of happiness,
the clarinet of humor. Yeah,
right. That's what it is. And so Kirk says, we're getting one's eyesight must be an emotional experience, Spock. But I gather you didn't have one. He's like, oh, on the contrary, my first sight of when I opened my eye, when I could see again, was Dr. McCoy's face hovering over me. I can tell you that was quite emotional. and then McCoy has his response and so on and so forth, and so we end with or back to one out of the planet.
Yeah, so McCoy goes up to Kirk, who Spock's at his station, and McCoy goes up to Kirk and kind of whispers under his breath a little bit. It's not really whispering, but he says quietly, "Don't tell him I said he was the best first officer in the fleet." and Spock turns around and says, "Why, thank you, Doctor." And Kirk says, "You were so focused on his Vulcan eyes, you forgot about his Vulcan ears." And that's our humorous out.
Yes, I wonder if they were subtly using Vulcan as a substitute for a euphemism.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, I've just reminded me of some Buccaneer jokes that I've heard. But in any case, it's probably just me. Any other notes on this one, Father?
Nope, nothing from my end.
How about you, Jimmy?
No, I don't think I'm going to watch this one again anytime soon. I recognize the story is not bad. It's just there's nasty squick factor in this. It's like those fried eggs are disgusting, and if, like I said, if you're going to modify people's behavior and override their free will, at least make them happy. Don't torture them.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember when I was a kid watching these. This one disturbed me because it was the thing. They looked creepy and they acted creepy. I'm trying to think of other episodes from those 3 seasons that had similar factors. The salt vampire also freaked me out.
That never bugged me. I loved salt as a kid.
The salt part not so bad, but the look of the salt vampire and
I love in the salt vampire episode where at the end where it's assumed the form of McCoy's former flame, and Spock is trying to demonstrate it couldn't possibly be her, and he's slugging her right and left and right and left. Could Nancy withstand this? And it just looks so ridiculous. This woman just standing there as Spock is, making these massive slapping motions.
Yes, that one. Also, Baylock's fake visual it was another one. And I always, as a kid, it was funny, I would close my eyes during the closing credits because it would pop up, at one point. So I wouldn't want to see that. Those are the ones that really kind of creeped me out as a kid. Anyway, so that is it for Operation Annihilate and the first season of original series. 2 more to go. So now we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Trek, including Melanie Q, Allison H, Jeremiah N, Paul O, and David M. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. What did you think of Operation Annihilate? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek, our Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Send an email to trek@sqpn.com, or visit our Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. And you can also watch the Secrets of Star Trek on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/StarQuestMedia, where you should leave a comment, but also subscribe and hit the bell to get notifications. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the animated series episode, The Slaver Weapon, the Zinti. Right?
Kazinti.
Kazinti, yes. Until then, Father Jason Tyler, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Star Trek.
Thanks, Tom.
And Jimmy Aiken, thank you as well.
Thanks, Tom, and live long and prosper.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest, and remember, 'tis a pity your brief blindness did not increase your appreciation for beauty, Mr. Spock.